President Trump is taking on teenage climate sensation Greta Thunberg after their frosty encounter at the UN. That icy glare has gone viral. Some are calling it a death stare.
It's one heck of a glare. Look at her face.
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
Now Trump is reacting, and it sure sounds like he's mocking her. She seems like a very happy young girl, looking forward to a bright and wonderful future. So nice to see, he tweeted at 11:30 p.m. last night.
Dripping with sarcasm.
Yeah. Greta finds herself the target of some ugly attacks.
The mentally ill Swedish child.
One conservative podcast host actually called the teenager who has been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome mentally ill.
You called her mentally ill. Take it back now.
She is mentally ill.
Take it back now.
She is mentally ill. She has autism. She has obsessive compulsive disorder. She has selective mutism. She had depression.
You are despicable.
Her mother.
A spokesman for Fox News called the remark disgraceful and says the pundit Michael Knowles will not be invited back.
Honey, go back to school. Calm down. It's going to be okay.
Laura Ingraham likened Greta and her fellow teenage activists to the horror movie Children of the Corn.
So take you his life and spill his blood.
I can't wait for Stephen King's sequel, Children of the Climate.
Greta is responding today by adopting President Trump's words as the new motto for her Twitter page. A very happy young girl looking forward to a bright and wonderful future. Before speaking at the UN General Assembly and with the First Lady at his side, the president had this to say about the growing Democratic Party calls for his impeachment.
I think it's ridiculous. It's a witch hunt. I'm leading in the polls. They have no idea how they stop me. The only way they can try is through impeachment.
Oh, Ralph, how I envy your optimism. There is no Springfield 50 years in the future. With global warming trapping the CO2 inside our poisonous atmosphere, our superheated oceans will rise, drowning our lowlands, leaving what's left of humanity baking in deserts that once fed the world. And in the new Nineveh, darkness falls.
Today I have a message for those open border activists who cloak themselves in the rhetoric of social justice. Your policies are not just. Your policies are cruel and evil. To anyone conducting crossings of our border illegally, please hear these words. Do not pay the smugglers. Do not pay the coyotes. Do not put yourself in danger. Do not put your children in danger, because if you make it here, you will not be allowed in. you will be promptly returned home. You will not be released into our country. As long as I am President of the United States, we will enforce our laws and protect our borders. The free world must embrace its national foundations. It must not attempt to erase them or replace them. Looking around and all over this large, magnificent planet, the truth is plain to see. If you want freedom, take pride in your country. If you want democracy, hold on to your sovereignty. And if you want peace, love your nation. Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. The future belongs to sovereign and independent nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique. It is why we in the United States have embarked on an exciting program of national renewal.
The actions taken to date by the President have seriously violated the Constitution. This week, the President has admitted to asking the President of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. It's a little hard to believe actually, but faithful Catholics are growing more and more concerned that Pope Francis's Vatican is on some kind of tear to advance globalism. And there's not only a lot of evidence to support the notion, there is at the same time not a lot of evidence to dispute the idea. Globalism is, in short, a governing system whereby individual nations cede or hand over some or all of their national sovereignty to a kind of collective government. So, by definition, globalism and nationalism are pretty much in opposition to each other. And faithful Catholics should not let their eyes glaze over on this, but remain, at least for the time being, up at the 60,000-foot level looking at it. This whole issue is being played out right now in U.S. politics among the Democrats. And so naturally, U.S. bishops have gotten involved in all of this as well. Here is the extremely critical, gigantic point to bear in mind. Globalism would usher in one supranational governing authority that would have complete control, as though every current nation were just a little single state in a worldwide nation. If any Catholic, Orthodox, or even dissenting can't see the immediate theological, political, and cultural problems with that, then they must have no pulse, brain, or both. the globalists have been running wild for the past few decades, extolling what they say are the advantages of globalism. Indeed, the very concept of the European Union is a regionalized stab at globalism, despite its difficulties. Pope Francis and his globalist cheerleader crowd in Rome are posturing that the very foundational concept of individual nations is now little else than they're just nostalgic entities, which have become overrun by giant transnational corporations. And to carry that thought further, these corporations are all greedy, exploit the poor of the earth, poison the environment, and are able to get away with all of it because they get to hide behind and operate through the laws of individual nations. So for the Pope, there's only one solution to all of this: abolish individual nations, make one world government, and rein in these greedy businesses with fines, penalties, and jail time if necessary. So, some problems. First, this is little else than a high-minded sounding wealth redistribution program, a favorite dream of political liberals. Remember the encounter between Obama and Joe the plumber on the 2008 campaign trail?
I'm getting ready to buy a company that makes about $250,000, $270,000, $80,000 a year. Right. Your new tax plan is going to tax me more, isn't it?
Well, here's what's going to happen. If you're a small business, which you would qualify, first of all, you get a 50% tax credit, so you get the cut-in taxes for your health care. And right now, everybody's so pinched that business is bad for everybody. And I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody.
Obama and liberals are all about taking the money of industrious, hard workers and giving it to people who don't work hard or aren't as industrious, and they call that spreading the wealth. Of course, Obama, Hillary, and the 240,000 other Democrats currently running for president this year never include their own wealth in that equation. It's just your wealth that needs to be spread around. Second, the entire notion of such a one world government is the ideal. It's the brass ring of Marxist communism. Even though Obama said spread the wealth, he was not the first guy with the idea. Karl Marx was. Third, the key question: exactly who would be the ruling class, the government, making the new laws to impose on the entire human race? And more to the point, what if the people wanted to throw off this one world government down the road? What mechanism for that would be in place? Fourth, what laws precisely would be imposed, say, for example, about maybe abortion or sodomite marriage or taxation and private property, and so on. Fifth, when it comes to the specific area of religion, if there is one world governing body, then it stands to reason that there would have to be, eventually, one world religion, or no world religion. Sixth, the Vatican city-state is its own national sovereignty. What would happen to it as it would be absorbed into the great universal governmental bureaucratic collective? Seventh, these liberal ideas are all the rage and have been in the West for decades, and political, theological, and social atheists have sought furiously to destroy Catholic established Western civilization. But can anyone seriously think that the Chinese communists are going to just hand over their power to the people? The Chinese commies kill people who propose those ideas. A few days ago, in his bid to dress up the one world government, Pope Francis suggested that the very concept of nationalism had within itself echoes of Hitler. Those are fighting words. Their purpose is to reawaken Europeans, the fear of National Socialism, that we should just run away from that as fast as our little liberal right-thinking feet can carry us. It's practically a scare tactic. So, the supranational question for the supranational proposal. Hitler and company of the Third Reich were all about world domination. That they were able to use an immoral appeal to the concept of nationalism as a springboard to world domination should be thought of here. The goal was world domination, period. So to make an appeal to the concept of nationalism as a kind of emotional blackmail to usher in what would be, in the end, world domination is either massively uninformed or incredibly disingenuous. And for the record, it was American nationalism during World War II, all of our wealth and our resources and our industrial might, that proved to be the decisive factor in crushing the Nazis and then the Japanese warlords. So, yeah, nationalism ain't so bad a thing after all, is it? Throughout history, nations have oftentimes worked as a kind of counterbalance to each other. Whether in warfare or trade or politics, whatever arena, the friction between individual national interests does oftentimes result in overall good, even if people do tend to dwell on friction more than the good. Thoughts of the space race of the 1960s between the US and the Soviet Union come to mind. But the discerning Catholics should keep this in mind. None of this is happening in a vacuum. It has invaded and seized control of an entire political party here in the US. Guess which one? Every major candidate for that party's upcoming nomination has touted this concept either explicitly or in its foundational principles, to wit, open borders, canceling every single private health insurance plan, using U.S. tax dollars to pay for health care for illegal immigrants, using U.S. tax dollars to pay for education for illegal immigrants. And mind you, much of that's already in place as we speak. They just want to formalize it and nationalize it. Ignoring borders and border security isn't really about economics and helping the poor and the immigrants and the asylum seekers. It's really about destroying national sovereignty, which is why Pope Francis keeps bashing the idea of any kind of wall or walls and slamming any political conservative American that he can find. However, something the Holy Father should stop and consider as he makes these ideological pronouncements from behind the safety of his own Vatican walls, a one-world government, once installed, would very likely have high on its list the pulling down of those same walls surrounding the city-state of the Vatican. Limousine liberals might have in mind some Marxist utopia, but the true author behind such a notion has only one goal in mind: the obliteration of the Catholic Church. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.
Early in the morning, the head of U.S. foreign policy met with the Pope. They then spoke behind closed doors for around 30 minutes. U.S. sources in Rome confirmed the two reaffirmed their commitment to advancing religious freedom around the world, and in particular, protecting Christian communities in the Middle East. They also discussed joint efforts to promote democracy and human rights globally. To remember his visit, Mike Pompeo gave Pope Francis a gift that evokes the role of immigrants in the country.
This is a United States that have lots of history from our early times of our country's formation. We talk about being a nation of immigrants, and this box represents the greatness and uniqueness of our country.
The Pope gifted him with a mosaic from a Vatican fountain, the main documents from his pontificate, and his message of peace. Mike Pompeo was accompanied by his family and introduced his wife to the Pope. At the end of the meeting, Pope Francis accompanied them to the door and made one last request of Pompeo.
And it's great to be with you. I want to thank Vice President Pence for the outstanding job he's doing. He's been a fantastic and valuable representative of our country. Likewise, Secretary Mike Pompeo, Ambassador Kelly Craft, Secretary Ross, Secretary Mnuchin, Ambassador Sam Brownback, all for joining us today. And we have other representatives of our cabinet and the administration in the room. We've done a lot. The Johnson Amendment doesn't get spoken about enough, but I'm very proud to say that we've obliterated the Johnson Amendment within our country, so that now we can listen to the people that we want to listen to, religious leaders, without recrimination against them. It's a very important thing, and I said that at the beginning, and I say it now. It's something I'm very proud of.